Hello and welcome. You are listening to the Ditch Decade Diets podcast. I am your host, Lorna, certified food freedom coach and founder of the Ditch Decade Diets Academy. I've spent 10 years in an unhealthy relationship with food, binge eating, over-exercising, and feeling insecure in my body. This podcast is all about helping you get to the root of your food struggles and teaching you how to rewire your brain so you can end binge eating. If you're ready to improve your relationship with food and cultivate more self-love towards yourself and your health, this is the podcast for you. So let's get to it and jump right in. Okay, we are on day 17 on how to stop binge eating. So I'm doing a 30-day TikTok series where every day I share how you can stop binge eating. And day 17 is all about leaning into the fear to heal your relationship with food. Now, when you're healing your relationship with food, there's going to be fear. There's going to be fear because you're going to have to do things that you've never done before. You are going to have to release your food rules. You are going to have to be okay with, introducing trigger foods. You're going to have to be open about your food struggles. Maybe you have to, or you want to tell a loved one that you're struggling with binge eating. Maybe you need to become more comfortable with eating in front of other people. All of these things can feel so scary, but leaning into the fear is going to create a transformation. So I remember, let's use deleting MyFitnessPal as an example. I was so used to tracking, weighing, and measuring all of my food. And I felt like I don't even know how much to eat if I don't track my food. I don't know how much protein to eat. I don't know how many carbs to eat. I don't know how much to eat. And the reality is I knew, like, deep down, we all know, if you look at a portion and you put a bunch of food on, like, like that's a little bit too much, right? Like you know. And especially if you've been weighing, tracking, and measuring your food for a really long time, you generally know like how much protein to eat, how many vegetables, like you generally know. But there's fear. So I was scared because I didn't trust myself. But I reminded myself that it's okay to have fear. And what was even scarier than deleting MyFitnessPal was spending, the rest of my life weighing, tracking, and measuring my food. So that was one thing that I needed to be okay with in terms of leaning into the fear. I needed to lean into the fear and be okay with deleting MyFitnessPal and be willing to trust myself, being willing to not be on a diet plan. Because even when I wasn't tracking my food, like I was on some type of plan, whether it was a meal plan, it was macros, it was, keto, intermittent fasting, I was always on a diet plan. And I needed to lean into the fear and be willing to trust myself to know how much to eat versus these external factors. And you won't be able to know how much to eat unless you actually release the diet plans and you listen to your body. If you continue to rely on external factors, right, you don't hear your body because you're so busy following what this person said how much you should be eating or this diet plan, and you don't actually know how much you should be eating. So that's one of the things you're going to have to be willing to release your food rules. Something else is you're going to have to get more comfortable eating in front of other people. I used to be very terrified of eating in front of other people. And I remember when I was on my journey, my uncle decided to stay with us for, I think it was like 6 months. When I was living with my parents, my uncle decided to stay with us. And I was like, oh no, like I'm on my healing journey and it's already like hard for me to eat in front of other people. It's already hard for me to like even allow myself to have sweets in front of my family because they never really saw me eating sweets growing up. Obviously, I always just did it in secret. And I was like, great, now I have my uncle who's here and
I don't want to go grab a snack. I don't want to go into the kitchen because like, is he going to say like, Lorna, you're eating again? Or what are you eating? Or like, I didn't want him to judge me. And I needed to lean into the fear and say, it is scary for me to go and eat in front of other people, but I don't want to keep eating in secret. I would literally go to social events and not eat all day. I would even go to Andrew's house. He's my husband now, but at the time he was my boyfriend. And I remember going to his parents' house and I was so scared to ask for something to eat because if I asked, can I have something to eat? Number one, I was scared that they're going to be like, you're eating again? But also, what comes after, can I have something to eat, is, well, what do you want to eat? And half the time, I had no freaking clue what I wanted to eat. So I'm like, well, if I just don't ask, then I don't have to make that decision. And it was so scary. Like I remember even having a conversation with my boyfriend at the time, Andrew, and I was like, this sounds so weird, but like I don't want to ask for something to eat because then your parents are going to say, well, what do you want to eat? And I was like, I told him, I said, it would be so much easier if you just kept on asking me, like, hey, do you want a snack? And my husband was willing to do that. My boyfriend at the time, he was willing to do that. So we'd be like watching a movie and he'd be like, hey, like, do you want something to eat? And it was so much easier for me to say yes than, hey, can I have something to eat? Because Andrew can sometimes go hours without eating. But for me, I can't do that. Like, I can't go hours without eating. Like, I need a little snack, you know what I'm saying? So I told Andrew and I was like, you just need to ask me more often. Like, is it okay if, hey, Laura, is it okay if you just say like, hey, Lorna, do you want something to eat? And it was so much easier for me to just say yes. And that helped me not go hours without eating. That helped me become more comfortable eating in front of other people. And even when we were at social events, like I would ask like, hey, Andrew, like, can you come up with me like while we go to the buffet? Because I just felt safer. And that's okay. Like, there are certain things that you might have to do on your healing journey that you're not going to have to do forever. But if it makes you feel safe to either have a conversation with your partner or have your partner come up with you, like, these are all things that are going to feel scary. Like I said, even telling my partner, hey, can you tell me, or can you ask me, do you want something to eat? Like that was a hard conversation. And like just asking for something to eat, I don't know why. It was terrifying. And I was like watching a movie with Andrew and his family, and I wasn't even paying attention to the movie because I'm like, okay, 3, 2, 1, say it. And I'm like, oh, I can't do it. Okay, ready? 3, 2, 1. And I would like be role playing how I was gonna ask for something to eat. Like, and it sounds such a silly thing, like just ask, like, hey, can I have something to eat? But that was so scary for me. But I needed to lean into the fear because I didn't want to be scared to eat in front of other people anymore. So when you feel scared to do something, whether it is deleting MyFitnessPal, asking for something to eat, whether it is eating in front of other people, just know that the first few times that you do it, it's going to feel scary and then it gets easier. So eventually, I got to a point where I could literally walk into my boyfriend's family's house and not only say, hey, can I have something to eat? I became more comfortable actually going in and grabbing whatever it is that I wanted. I became more comfortable because I was willing to lean into the fear. So when you think, oh my God, this is so scary, I can't do it, it's going to feel scary the first, the second, maybe the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh time, but eventually you're going to be more comfortable. That's just the way life is, right? Like the first time that you do something, of course it's scary, but you rip the Band-Aid off and then you lean into it and you're like, okay, it gets a little bit easier. And now I don't get terrified eating in front of other people. Even this week, like I can eat whatever in front of other people now. Like there's nothing that I'm afraid of anymore. Even this weekend, I went to the beach with one of my friends and we spontaneously just went out for dinner. And again, it was like, let's order whatever it is that we want. Like there's no fear. There's no, oh my God, I can't eat in front of this person. And in the past, I would have been so scared that I wouldn't have eaten and then I would have came home and I would have binged. But now, because I was willing to lean into the fear, I can eat whatever I want in front of whoever I want because I was willing to lean into the fear. The other thing that you might have to lean into the fear with is like being open with your loved ones about struggling with binge eating. And I remember the first time that I told Andrew that I was struggling with binge eating, it was the scariest thing. I think it was like 3 years into our relationship, something like that. I think it was like 3 years or whatever. And I texted him because I couldn't even tell him to his face. I was so terrified. I was so scared to tell Andrew that I struggled with binge eating because I didn't want him to judge me. I knew he wouldn't like leave me. He wouldn't judge me, but it's a vulnerable thing. But I leaned into the fear because I knew that I didn't want to keep hiding this struggle from him. I knew that I wanted to be open with him because not only was it going to help me take a weight off my shoulders, but my partner also deserved to know, and your partner deserves to know as well too. And I was just talking with somebody, and I said, your partner isn't going to be the one to help you stop binge eating, but they can be there to support you. So Andrew was there to support me in terms of like being a supportive partner, but he didn't help me stop binge eating. I got proper support from a coach, but your partner, like it's important for them to know. It's important for them to know because if your partner doesn't know, then they're gonna be confused of like why you don't want to go out for dinner or why you're snappy or why you're irritable or why you don't want to go out for dinner or like why you don't want to be intimate. There would be so many times where I would tell Andrew, like, I don't want to be intimate. And poor guy probably thought like, something was up when really like I just felt very uncomfortable in my own skin. And so when I shared with him, hey, Shauna, hey, Simona, hi, Diana, hello, you guys, say hello in the chat. And when I told Andrew, like he finally like understood why sometimes I would have anxiety going out for dinner. He understood why I wouldn't want to be intimate sometimes. And not that he would really understand, but he was more understanding of the situation because I was willing to be open with him. So that was really important as well too. Something else you're going to have to be willing to lean into the fear of is introducing off-limit foods or trigger foods into your diet. So many people are terrified of doing this, but if you don't lean into the fear and if you don't allow yourself, if you don't expose yourself to the foods that are triggering for you, they're always going to be triggering. Period. If you never allow yourself to have the foods that scare you, they're always going to be scary. And so on my journey, there were certain foods like nut butter was a trigger food, chocolate was a trigger food, protein bars were a trigger food, nuts like cashews were a huge trigger food for me. And every single time I never allowed myself to have them, they became scarier. They were like a big scary monster. And instead, I was like, I'm going to actually allow myself to have these foods. I need to lean into the fear. Was it scary to allow myself these foods that I always told myself that I was going to binge on? Yes. Was it scary? 100%. But it only becomes scary the first few times. And then it doesn't become scary anymore. And now I can have whatever trigger foods, they're not even trigger foods anymore, but I can have whatever foods I want without binging. Even yesterday, I made myself chocolate chip pancakes. I had one. I had one because that's all I wanted. But when you're scared of trigger foods and you never allow yourself to have them, when you expose yourself to them, you binge on them. Versus you lean into the fear, you allow yourself to have them, you take those foods off of a pedestal and you have them more often, and then they become less scary. And now it's like I can have whatever foods I want. I can have chocolate in the house. I made myself chocolate chip pancakes. I just had one yesterday because I was like, that's all I wanted. But that wouldn't have happened if I was too scared to allow myself to have them. If you don't lean into the fear, foods are always going to be scary for you. Foods are always going to be triggering for you. So those were just some examples of things that I needed to lean into the fear of, and things that you're going to have to lean into the fear of. You're going to have to allow yourself to expose yourself to trigger foods. You're going to have to be open, with a partner about what it is that you're going for. Maybe you need to even lean into the fear of getting support. I know when I reached out to a coach, like, it was scary. It was scary saying, like, hey, I'm binging. Like, that's a very vulnerable thing. But again, whether you get support from myself as a coach or whoever, it's like, you need to be willing to share that and be vulnerable and share what it is that you're going through so you can get the proper support, and once you lean into the fear, you don't fear things anymore. You're like, how did I even do that? So, for example, Minette says, have an event this weekend, but binge free for 10 days feels good. Heck yeah, 10 days binge free. Let's freaking go. So exciting. So at first I was like, I can never not track my food. And now I'm like, I will never track my food ever again. It's such a waste of freaking time. I used to be so terrified of eating in front of other people. And now I'm like, how did I go all day without eating? Like, that's just not going to be a thing. I used to be so terrified of eating chocolate chip pancakes. And now I eat them on the regular without binging. I used to be so scared of telling Andrew that I struggled with binge eating. And now we have the best relationship in the entire world. And our communication is even better now. We're open about so many other things because I was willing to lean into the fear. So if you're willing to lean into the fear, you're going to heal your relationship with food faster. Because if you're always scared of trigger foods, you're not going to allow yourself to have trigger foods, and they're always going to be triggering. If you're always scared of going out for dinner, then you're never going to go out for dinner, and it's always going to feel like a scary thing. If you are always scared to reach out to a coach, then you're going to be in isolation and try to figure out how to stop binge eating on your own, and you're always going to stay stuck. I had one client that came to me and she tried on her own for 20 years on how to stop binge eating. She worked with me for 6 months. We worked together because she was able to, push past the fear. She reached out to me. She joined my Root and Rewire membership. We worked together for 6 months. She stopped her binge eating. Imagine if she didn't lean into the fear. Imagine if she was too scared. She wouldn't be binge free right now. But she was willing to lean into the fear. So leaning into the fear is going to help you transform your relationship with food, whether that's releasing your food rules, deleting MyFitnessPal, eating in front of other people, reaching out to myself to get some support, introducing trigger foods. You need to be willing to lean into the fear, and it's only going to be scary at the beginning. And then you do it and you're like, okay, it actually wasn't that bad. But you got to take that step. You got to be a courageous version of yourself. I call my clients and all of you guys badasses, because a badass is somebody who does hard things. A badass is somebody who leans into the fear. A badass is somebody who says, like, I'm ready to stop binge eating. I'm not going to let fear hold me back. I'm ready to take my foot off of the brake pedal. I'm ready to live my life. And if you're willing to lean into the fear, you're going to live an incredible life. Every time I eat more than usual in a day, I end up binging and I make myself feel so sick. Yeah. And this is the perfectionist mindset, because eating more than usual, there's nothing wrong with that. Our bodies change from day to day. Hormones change, hunger levels change. You might be hungrier one day, less hungry another day. There's nothing wrong with that. But you judging yourself and feeling like you're doing something wrong, you end up eating way more because you feel like you messed up, versus somebody else who's like, oh, I just ate more today. Like, it's no big deal. Like, I know that it's normal for my body to be hungrier some days and less hungry some days. And then they don't consume thousands of calories the next day because they don't have that perfectionist mindset. So even though it feels like, whoa, like, why did I eat so much today? Why did I need an extra snack? Or why did I eat this? And it's easy to beat yourself up. It's like, hold on, like, there's nothing wrong with that. Some days I have a huge appetite and I'm like, just eating and eating and eating. And then there's some days where I'm like, I just want fruit. Obviously, I eat other things, but like, especially in the summer, especially in the summer, I'm like, I just want like fruit and fresh, like I want yogurt or like oats or like something refreshing, And that's okay. Don't be beating yourself up if you're eating more one day than the other, because when you don't beat yourself up, you don't change your food the next day. And that's actually way better than beating yourself up and then binging the next day. So that's what I would say. Great question. All right, you guys, we are going to wrap up. This was day 17. If you're not yet listening to the Ditch Decade Diets podcast, head over there, listen to the podcast. I'm also doing a giveaway. I'm giving away 3 master classes for free for 2 people at the end of this week. All you need to do is leave a rating and a review on the podcast, the Ditch Decade Diets podcast, and screenshot it and message it over to me. And I'm choosing 2 people to win 3 master classes with me on how to rewire your brain to stop binge eating, how to stop eating when you're full, and how to transition yourself out of binge eating. So 2 people are winning that at the end of the week. Just leave a rating and review on the podcast, screenshot it, and message me so that your name can be entered to win. 4 people already won. They already got the master classes. They're like, this is life changing. Like, I've gotten so much great feedback from the people who already got those master classes. And I'm giving away 2 more at the end of the week. So rate and review the podcast, screenshot it, message it over to me, and you could be entered to win the giveaway. All right, you guys, thanks for hanging out. I will see you tomorrow at 4:00 Eastern Standard Time for day 18. Have the best day ever, you guys, and we'll see you soon. Bye.